Hey everyone, before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like my content, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and then join the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community by clicking the link in the caption. Hey, good evening everybody. It's 11:30, 2023, and we're moving into the Christmas holiday season, and I think that it's going to be a powerful time frame. One of the things that we've seen in the, just recently is that it's not actually recently, and if you come into Patreon and into our Discord room, if you Google final accounts, you're going to find that specifically, do the search final accounts. You're going to see we go back. I think it goes back almost a year. Is that Iraq has been talking about their final accounts. And what I wanted to bring up, because there's been a lot of questions about the fact that they're talking about they've only done their final accounts to 2016. What they said is today is that they have the audit of the final accounts for 2016 budget has been fully completed. Now, if you go back and if you have memory and if you've been in this investment long enough to know that things happened since 2003, subsequently all the way up to where we are today. But one of the biggest events, sadly, and you saw that in the news, is that the Spiker incident was on or around the ISIS era, right? Sadly, my heart goes out to all of those families over in Iraq because they truly need some love and some care. But the truth is that was a time frame where they had some problems with their budget and final accounts. But if you come back to forward, like I said, if you do the research in my room, our room, the Militia Man and Crew, you're going to see that if you do that search, final accounts, you can go back and you're going to come forward. But what do they say? It says the Federal Office of Financial Supervision indicating that work is continuing to complete the final accounts for the years 2020 and 2022. And this particular article, they basically suggest that they finished the final accounts from 2016. And subsequently, they're talking about the final accounts 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020. But I can honestly say that they, here in this particular article, they specifically state, I know it's kind of messed up, but it says 2020, 22, right? All right, so the main focus was during that time frame, during the ISIS era, that they had some problems. And the articles, if you go and read them, you're going to see some key components that are in there that tell you why. Is because they were pretty much telling you information based off of just a handshake and a shoestring. That's basically what it is. But they fixed that, and that's probably one of the issues that needed to be resolved. And they mention it again, but if they really truly got it sorted, that 2016, each and every subsequent budget should have final accounts. And when they say this now is at the time where it's necessary. So anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on that. There's a big article that came out a couple of days ago. There's a couple of professionals that are out there that talked about it, and some of them are from the Middle East. They talked about what? They talked about a master currency or a monetary sovereignty. That's how I would see it. That's what the translations that I get. I'm not disputing anybody's language on how it works, but the bottom line is that there's been some articles that are talking about implementing the principle of monetary sovereignty. The first one that came out a couple of days ago was not as in depth as the one that came out today. It's basically considering that the Iraqi dinar is the only refuge for exchange, for pricing, and coverage of internal transactions. I'm just going to remember that statement because it's all about internal. Iraq being internal means they're going to use their own currency in the future. And that's what you're seeing is cash less issue with the electronic cards and stuff. They're not saying that they're erasing anything, but they're going to use a little bit less cash. And that's one of the things that people have to realize, that Iraq works on different types of currencies. And so if you're going to talk about having lower denomination currencies, you're going to need small category notes and fills. We use pennies here in our country. So think about that. That's part of the whole process. So anyway, not to get into too far long, without getting into the depth of it, it says that the gentleman is talking about this his name was Mazhar Muhammad Saleh. So he's a very prominent advisor, a financial advisor. He goes on and says he's stressing that dealing with the dollar and its pricing of the internal economic movement is what is most harmful to the economy, but there is no harm in covering external transactions exclusively and through official platforms. So he's basically suggesting that if you do it properly, and if you're going to do trade, imports, etc., if you use the dollar properly through the official platforms, you're not going to have a problem. He goes, on the basis of government policy, the central bank moves towards relying not on one country's currency in foreign transactions, but diversifying those currencies such as the Emirati dirham, the Turkish lira, the Chinese yuan, the British pound, the euro, in addition to the dollar. So what I've been saying all along is like, look, the dollar's not going to go away. It's still going to be used legitimately. That's just it. You can't use it as a smuggling operation through a parallel market. They're clamping down on it. It's going away. When they talk about internal, they're talking about Iraqi dinar is going to be the dinar. And then they're also giving you the impression that once they get to that stage, the parallel market has got a squeeze on. They're using all these other international currencies. We don't need to worry about having to fight for the dollar in the country, but because we're going to use all these other currencies like the Chinese yuan. The Chinese yuan, I think, is the second in command below the number one currency in the world, which is the United States dollar, and probably will likely be for a long time because they have the world reserve currency. And regardless of being allowing some competition, you're probably going to see that that's still going to be the case. But we'll see how that turns out. But the diversification for the country reduces the dollarization, and which is fine. And I think that's their whole goal. Who's in charge of this whole thing? The United States Treasury, the Federal Reserve Bank. They're the ones with the platform, the ISO 20022. That's what they're using. It's a blockchain system. They're not playing games. And so they have a mission. So a lot of the news that we get, a lot of the times, it doesn't quite paint a picture because there's other motivations. And some of that motivation is not necessarily pro-Western civilization, I guess, if you will. Prime Minister's philosophy confirms that the economic reform cannot be achieved without reforming the banking system, and therefore the priority begins with reforming the financial system. Okay, sorry, but that is what they're doing. The Prime Minister, he believes that if we can reform the economic system, we can achieve reform through the banking system. Therefore, the priority begins with reforming that financial system. Now, go back to what we did on the UN Assembly. They were bragging about J.P. Morgan having confidence. They were talking about Iraq was going to be effectively, in my words, a savior for the financial system, the global financial system. Because why? Because all of these things that we're talking about, all those currencies that I just mentioned, those are just a few of them. Those are going to be foreign reserve currencies in Iraq's stash. Aside from the dollar, they're going to add more foreign currencies into their stash. And why are they going to keep adding more foreign currencies? Is because their borders are going to be open. They're going to be electronic. We have the ACE system, that taxation. You're going to have revenue streams that are coming into Iraq that aren't fiction, they're fact. The revenue streams are going to be massive because of just the taxes and tariffs from all the imports and all the widgets, WTO, You're going to have all the liquid natural gas. They're going to stop flaring gas. You have all the gold. You have all the phosphates. You have all of the natural resources. And you have tourism. And you have interconnectivity from China all the way into Gaza. The Silk Road, the Development Road, goes all the way into Europe. It's going to do all those things. And so what are you going to do? You're going to build industrial cities, and we're going to get to that. You're going to deal with the private sector. So interestingly enough, the central bank has announced today, I think it is, what is today, the 30th? I think it is. It says that the central bank has been announcing that the Iraq's transfer auction for the period of the next 14 days. But what I'd like to say is that it talks about that this auction is the last auction for this calendar year. It's early. It's on 12/6/2023. This is a sidebar, you guys. Just want to throw this at you because this is the central bank talking to us. It says that they're going to do this auction according to the specific details, and it's announced, it's been published, and they're going to finish the last auction of the year, 2024, and that's what it's going to be. And what was the date? 12/6/2023. That's next week. So this auction, as we know it, is the last one we're ever going to see. Okay. So also, everybody, if you haven't been paying attention, if you're not doing the study, that's fine, no big deal. But it's a lot more complex than people think, right? Here is something from the calendar from the WTO for Iraq. Simple, do your search, right? Google WTO, Iraq, calendar. You're going to find it. It says the government procurement is the process by which the government acquires the goods and services by purchasing from commercial businesses. That meeting from the WTO about Iraq is on when? Wednesday, December 6th. Same day as the last day of the auction. Let it think in. I'm not saying it's a smoking gun or anything, but I find it very interesting about all these things that I've been piecing together for all this time have been showing that there's a direction to Iraq to be international. And we're going to see some more of that evidence here in a few minutes. But that is pretty interesting. I was intrigued by that today. Here, another sidebar, which is really kind of fun because it's a lot of people say, well, you know, we're going to kick the United States out of Iraq, and we're going to lob some, Katyusha missiles, and we're going to do these things and stuff. Aside from the blowback that they had recently, we haven't heard much about that anymore because I think our reaction said what it is, firm stick. But the bottom line is, here it's kind of interesting, is that the United States congratulated Prime Minister Shia al-Sudani on the occasion of the launch of a 5-year national development plan, expressing aspiration to work in enhanced economic diversification and sustainable development in Iraq. And so sustainable development has been a key component of what the development program, which is what? Build the Development Road. 2023, 24, 25 budget is all about projects, needs money, needs the budget to be opened. All of those things that we talked about in my last video. So if you haven't got caught up, I suggest you go back 2 or 3 videos and watch them all. And once you get to this stage, you're going to go, wow, because of the nature of what we're talking about. It says, we value our partnership with Iraq, which is the United States saying that to Iraq, and we look forward to working with our partners through the USAID. They're going to advance economic diversification and sustainable development through the implementation of this plan. And so here we are. We have the United States congratulating the Prime Minister, and I don't think the United States is going anywhere other than to do business. It's going to be cool. And here, Al-Nasari, his headline for his article today is a new round of understandings to regulate trade, financing, and control the exchange rate on the black market with the U.S. Federal Reserve. So they're going to work in conjunction with each other, and they are working in conjunction together to get rid of what? The black market, if that's what they call it. Parallel market may be a better term. Fair enough. It says here the government delegation, including officials from the Central Bank of Iraq, will hold a new round of understandings early next December with the U.S. Federal Reserve to hold meetings within the framework of series of negotiations in order to reach more agreements to regulate trade, financing, and enhance the balances of Iraq banks from foreign currencies in banks. The correspondent suggests that controlling the dollar speculation, their words, black, and maintaining the stability of the exchange rate. So they're talking about the exchange rate being on the black market. And they're going to get rid of it. And they're going to do this very quickly because basically what have they done? Al-Samari says, Nusayri says that in an interview with the news that there are currently negotiations taking place with relevant authorities in Turkey and in Turkish banks to enhance balances in euros or Turkish lira. And they go on saying that in the coming days, the Emirates, through the mediation of the Abu Dhabi Bank, they're going to enhance the balances of the UAE dirham. So ultimately, we already know that this is just kind of a reiteration. I think it's behind the times because it's already been taken care of. It goes on to say that the foreign trade or commercial exchange of Iraq with the countries annually is approximately $60 billion. So ultimately, yeah, because of the fact that really, look, China is basically 12 to 14 billion dollars, right? Turkey's 10 billion, Iran's 10 to 12 billion. They go on and they keep going on with India, the Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Syria, Egypt, and others. I mean, what are they talking about? They're talking about massive amount of trade. And what are they doing? They're swapping currencies. Basically, Samir al-Nasiri points out that, quote, the new currencies with which our bank balances will be strengthened are the European euro, the Chinese yuan, the Emirati dirham, the Turkish lira, the Indian rupee, and they may constitute a percentage of no less than 60% of the volume of our annual imports. What they're doing is they're indicating that dealing with these currencies comes after the approval of the Federal Reserve, right? Federal Reserve. So they did this on the approval of the Federal Reserve. The Americans, right, with his or her assistance and in agreement with him, meaning translation is that everybody's in an agreement with it. The Federal Reserve Bank, United States Treasury, all these other countries are on board to do what? To do trade in the dinar. It's I don't know. To me, it's fascinating. They go on to say that the opening of accounts for correspondent banks. We talked about Article 8 just recently. Go back to October 10th. There's a huge article on it. I did a whole big post on it, and we're talking about correspondent banks. You go back to the last 2 weeks. What did they do? They opened correspondent banks with Iraq to do what? To facilitate trade through what? All these different currencies. So is it fact or is it fiction? It's a fact. So it's fascinating that, I deal in facts, I deal in the truth, I deal in data, right? So everybody keep that in mind. So with the assistance of the United States and with this trust of everybody else, there's opening of accounts for correspondent banks, which have now reached more than 40 new accounts. And they go on to say that the number is approximately the same as they thought, and they're on the verge of increasing to more than this number. So 40 is not enough. And on a sidebar, you guys, if you look at the ISX Stock Exchange, look at some of the things that are going on with the banks on the ISX Stock Exchange, and those banks, those 14 to 18 banks that were sanctioned, are they becoming unsanctioned? And are their volumes of their sales increasing? Is their share structures changed or anything? You need to do some research. You might find that there's opportunity even after this thing goes. So, goes on to say that these correspondent banks such as Citibank, JP Morgan, Chinese, Emirati, Indian banks. The Turkish, they're stressing there are no fears of the Iraqi being subject to sanctions from the Federal Reserve in this regard, but rather that these banks are authorized to deal and open accounts with the agreement of the Federal Reserve Bank. So that's how the parallel market's going to go bye-bye, is because everybody that's a trading partner with Iraq is like leaving everybody in the dust, and it's going to be the implications are huge. Okay, so now that there's new instructions and procedures for the central bank that include allowing Iraqi banks that have accounts abroad in foreign currencies to import and transfer these currencies into Iraq for the purpose of using them to distribute to citizens deposits with our banks that are in foreign currency, and thus they will be distributed to them. Okay, it goes on and on. Basically, it says, what are they doing? They're preserving the foreign cash reserves of Iraq in the central bank, so it's a benefit for the country. Thus, they will control the movement of speculators on the black market. I'll use the parallel market, but they're putting pressure on the dollars circulating on the parallel market, resulting from, illicit trade and unofficial outlets that have not been controlled. So ultimately, you guys, the black market, the parallel market, the illicit market, whatever you want to call it, right, it's going to go bye-bye. So here's a cool thing too, is that all of a sudden you find that the European Union ambassador has a project to reconstruct the ancient city of Basra and Nineveh in cooperation with the UNESCO. Well, why is that kind of interesting? It's basically the private sector is coming to town. That's all there is to it. I might not have all this perfectly in order, but that's okay, because this is big, because we're talking about tourism, okay? We're talking about reconstructing ancient areas. That's going to draw a massive amount of people all over the world to come in and see that stuff. And so it says that the project to reconstruct ancient areas in the provinces of Basra and Nineveh in cooperation with the UNESCO is on the table. It says the two sides discussed the mechanisms for signing the joint financing agreement. So they're going to finance it. They're working together between who? Iraq and the European Union to finance a number of economic projects and activities, which include developing the private sector and implementing the plan for the return of the displaced. So obviously those areas have some issues because of the fact that they had some problems back during ISIS and everything else. But I want to backtrack, and I won't go into it. I'm going to do it quick and fast and furious, is because the Ministry of Transport accession to the TIR convention on March 1st, 2023. It's basically an international agreement with what? The European Union Ministry of Transport revealed the advantages of Iraq's accession to the International Land Transport Agreement, noting that the implementation will allow thousands of trucks to enter Iraq and will significantly stimulate the economy. They set the stage. We've been following it. We're showing you how it's working, how it's running. It says basically that they have full accession. The agreement aims to facilitate international land traffic for transport operators, their agents, by facilitating the movement of goods subject to customs seals in a simple and cost-effective system, and reducing delays at border crossings and passages, and shipping containers and vehicles operating in international trade. Okay, that's months ago. Now we have what? We had the IMF. I told you this the other day. The IMF had meetings with from the 6th to the 17th in Abu Dhabi, specifically about the ISCUTA system. Global, right? Customs. Fascinating. And thank you for everybody for being here. And if you're new here, you know what? Like my content, subscribe if that's what you like. And I'll obviously, to keep this content going with all the wonderful people that we have all the crew members. Samson's News effectively rolls 24/7 with everybody's help. And you know what? We have Zelle, we have Venmo, we have PayPal. And thank you very much, you guys. Appreciate it. Once again, guys, don't forget to hit that like button if you like this content. Subscribe to the channel. or join us at the Militia Man and Crew Patreon community for even more exclusive content. You can also donate to this channel by hitting the links in the banner to help keep this page up and running. Your generous support is greatly appreciated, as always. Much, much appreciated. Thank you so much and have a great day.